Welcome to Create Wealth Through Franchising. I'm your host, Kim Daly. Whether you're a CEO, a military vet, a real estate investor, or simply in career transition and ready to take ownership of your future, with each episode, you're going to learn valuable insights and hear inspiring stories from within the franchise industry. On that note, my guest stories are their own, and as a franchise consultant, I do not make personal brand endorsements or earnings claims, but I do educate, motivate, and inspire dreams. Now, on to the show. Welcome back to Kim Daly TV. I have an amazing multi-club exponential fitness franchisee with us today. Her name is Liz Roberts. She is a Pure Barre franchisee in Massachusetts and Connecticut. Liz, thank you for joining me today and welcome to the studio of Kim Daly TV.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for being here. So my followers know that I'm a fitness girl at heart and I love my fitness franchisors. But I'm very particular because sometimes when you know too much, you know too much. So a lot of fitness franchisors will be like, how do we get a Kim Daly lead? And I think to myself, well, if you're not part of Exponential Fitness, you're probably not getting my lead. so anyway, so here you are at Pure Barre. You joined in 2015. You mentioned to me that you have 12 clubs. So this is an amazing empire building story. So let's go back to 2015 and tell the followers a little bit about what problem you were solving for in your life when you decided Pure Barre was an answer. And then how did you decide to grow to 12 clubs in less than 10 years?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually going to take it back a little bit further than 2015. So I grew up in Vermont and family of farmers, which are entrepreneurs, and that have diversified into other industries as well. And I actually went to school for entrepreneurship. So I went to Babson College, and so I always knew that I wanted to run a business someday, but I didn't know what. Like most kids, right? You don't exactly know. So I went into finance after my college ended to kind of learn. I always felt like if you could understand the financial aspects of any business, then you can run any business. So I went into kind of high finance. I did turnaround restructuring work, kind of learned what not to do in a business. And then I got into wealth management a little bit. I got like a bunch of licenses, really got, pretty nerdy in finance. And then the financial crisis hit at the same time that I got married. And so I kind of stuck with it. But then when I got pregnant with my first child, I was like, I really need a change. Finance wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted to have as a mom. And so that's where the search really began for something entrepreneurial. So there were a few other ideas, but at that time I had friends around the world, now Facebook exists at this point, and they're talking about barre classes. And as a fitness enthusiast, I was like, what are they talking about? And so I'm sitting on the couch, and at this point I have 2 children by the time I hear about barre, and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm like, tell my husband, I was like, hey, I think I want to try this and see what it's about. The closest one is an hour and a half away from where we live. And it's like a Thursday night, and I go to book us in a weekend class, and the classes are all full. And I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. And so I book us in the following week. And we went to the Wellesley studio, which is where Babson College really is. So we dropped our kids off at my in-laws and we headed out there, and I had just run a half marathon. My husband's pretty fit. And we walked in, and the class was full. We paid, we got our sticky socks, and my husband was the only male. And we proceeded to just have like the workout of a lifetime. We both thought we were so fit. And I'm looking around, and there's women of all ages, some of them a lot older than me, and they're holding their plank and they're just killing it. And I'm like, I love this workout. It's the most efficient workout I've ever done. It hurts in all the right places. And this is what I'm going to bring to Western Mass. So I took one class before I decided to apply to become a franchisee, which isn't the typical route for a Pure Barre franchisee. There's a lot of dancers or people that were clients. So I'm a little bit on the rare side because I was looking for a business. I took one class an hour and a half away from my house and decided this is it. I'm bringing this to Western Mass. And so that was in 2015 at the start of the year. And essentially, I bootstrapped that my first studio. My original goals was to open were to open 3 studios, and I also was pregnant with my third child during the time I was opening my first studio. And at the time in the Pure Barre franchise, in order to open the franchise, you had to teach. So I was 38 weeks pregnant, teaching 12 classes a week, managing the studio, and I had 2 toddlers at home. And so I was able. I sometimes tell people that I think the best thing that happened was having a real baby after opening my studio baby, because I had to,
Yeah.
yeah, I had to like have other people run it so that I could go give birth. I actually went into labor at the studio, and so everybody's joking. I was like, I didn't realize till I got in the car, and I was like, oh, I'm totally in full labor. And so I had my third child, and it gets better because I get crazier. I had one studio at the time, and nobody knew what bar was in Western Massachusetts. And so, like, I remember being interviewed on the radio, and they're like, "Oh, is it a drinking place?" And I'm like, "No, it's a workout." And so I really felt like I had to create what bar was, the bar market out here. And so at that point, other people were like, "Oh, I want to open one because we're a franchise." And so I gave birth to my third child, and in the hospital, I bought the next studio from the hospital bed. Um, and
Because you were
so that's
worried
where
that
it
somebody was
started.
going to come buy your territory?
I was worried, yeah, and so I was like, "No, that's not gonna happen, and I don't care if I'm giving birth, like, I'm gonna secure that market." And I did, and then it kind of, I like I said it before, I really thought I'd own 3, and then after I opened the second one, there was another studio that was supposed to be open, and I was a good franchisor, and the person that was opening it fell through. And so the franchisor called me and said, "Hey, are you interested?" And I had, a conversation with my husband. I said, "Well, right now I have like a well-paid job, right? I'm running 2 studios, I'm teaching, but opening another one an hour from my house, it's really turns from, I have a job to an investment, where I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be the face. People aren't going to know who I am." And that's when it really shifted for me of, okay, I'm working in the studio to I'm becoming an investor of Pure Bars. And that was a big leap, right? And I had to kind of learn how to do that and how to structure it. And then at the same time I opened that one, I bought 2, and then it started happening where I bought a bunch of turnaround studios. So studios that people, weren't running to their max efficiency, and I was able to come in and do that. And I at the same time I was buying the territories um, that were open in my areas so that I would own my zip codes, and not have somebody else owning one, so that my clients would have the option to go to multiple studios, in their region. And that's really how I grew. I never set out to own as many. It's just that when the opportunity comes and I crunch the numbers, I guess I just can't resist it. And I'm like, well, this makes sense. Let's go ahead and do that. We have the structure, and I have great staff, and they joke that, one of them went on maternity leave with 3 studios and came back, and I own 6. And I'm like, so your job's changed. So that was kind of the growth trajectory. Is it was more opportunity driven than any real set plan. If you looked at my original like 5-year financial plan, I didn't have this amount of growth built in. But as the opportunities arose, and as we gained success, and as I saw that we were good operators and we could turn studios around, that's when I started doing it.
Hey, Daily Coach fans, if you're loving this episode, please do me a quick favor and leave me a 5-star rating and a short review. Your feedback fuels my growth and rankings and shows others that this podcast is valuable. Now, back to the show. There's so much to go back to. So first of all, kudos to Supermom, okay? So, it's so funny. I just made a short this morning about priorities because I was working with somebody who about 4 or 5 weeks ago was determined that they're ready to change their life and start a business. And then yesterday said, well, I'm a little bit worried about the economy, so I'm going to put this on pause. And I'm like, no, that's not a reason. Like if you're ready to start a business, like you let's just call it what it is. It's fear, because if you're ready to start a business, it's just about, diving in and getting going at any time. And you're like, here you are having babies, legit reasons why maybe we shouldn't do this right now. And your priorities were there. And so you made it happen. So that's like the first thing I have to like give you huge, girl to girl hugs on that one.
Yeah.
But so then what I really love is, you were forced when you got an hour away. Now, for those listening, I don't believe today with Pure Barre, like brands evolve, and where Pure Barre started to where it is today under the Exponential umbrella, because it didn't start under Exponential. They acquired it as an already existing franchise brand. So when they started, they might have wanted owners to be teaching, but I don't believe that today that is the model. Can you clarify that, Liz?
That is absolutely correct. So now under Exponential, you do not have to teach to open the studio. But at the time, I was a pretty early in the brand. So it was pre-Exponential as the franchisor. You had a lot of people that were dancers, and like you had to be, it was more about the technique. So you couldn't open it if you didn't pass the test of, can you teach the class?
It's so funny. So, well, I love that we evolve and get better. So, for those listening, especially if you're an executive man, you're like, wow, I know that my wife, my daughter, my girlfriend loves bar method, but like, I'm not going to go teach a class. Set yourself free from that, because what Exponential, it really, they are the masters at this. And this is how they built their largest brand, which is Club Pilates, is taking, the executive, especially the executive man who was an empire builder, in as the CEO of the studio, hiring the people who could be the instructor. And so once they acquired Pure Barre, they shifted the model away from, we need people who own it to be the instructors. We need people who own it, who are the CEOs, who can manage instructors. So all of the Exponential brands work that way, and they're mostly semi-absentee models, which my followers know by definition, 20 to 25 hours a week by the owner with a full-time manager. So back to your story, Liz. So you get in, it's then acquired at some point during this path by Exponential. But what I really loved when you said, now you're going to buy this studio over an hour away from your home. You've got a baby, you've got 2 kids at home. So you're kind of, forced into letting go and really develop using that executive, skill set you honed in your corporate life, and really building an investment rather than a job. And that must have been a major shift for you. And I'd love for you to speak a little bit about that, because there are so many people out there with the limiting belief that if I can't do the job, if I can't get in there and teach the class, I can't own the gym. If I can't be the mechanic turning the wrench in case my mechanic doesn't show up, I can't own the business. And it's a pebble in the path. It's not a mountain in front of you. So can you speak a little bit to that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I think that is really, really valid. When I was learning the class pregnant in my living room, not knowing anything about bar, I was, part of me was like, well, this is a bit ridiculous, right? That I have to do this. And in a lot of ways, it was the biggest challenge of opening the business. I had a business mind, and I had to overcome that hurdle of teaching the class. Now, do I absolutely think it benefits me? Yes, but it is not needed. And so from the get-go, I was like, my goal is to hire people better than me, right? To teach the class, because this is not the most efficient use of my time. And so when I made that shift, to the more of the investment mindset, that's when I started reading a lot more books and really trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to manage this, right? And so there's a book, Traction, that is like the EOS mindset, where it's like, and that's really was a guiding way if people are readers and looking for a way to figure out how to manage their. It's a great book to give you some structure on how to manage people, right? And how to really set up an executive team and how to grow into that in the right mindset. And so it's, I joke that my goal is to be obsolete in the business, because that means I'm doing a really great job if I can become obsolete. I haven't gotten there yet. The pandemic set me back a little bit, but I think it is certainly, I like how you said it, it's a pebble in the road to not be able to do it, but the goal is to hire people that are better at you in that part of your business, so that you can work on the business and not in the business. When you're in the business, you get dragged down by the weeds, but when you're on top, you can really be the person that is placing all the little things together and seeing where somebody on the bottom might say something and not realize that it connects to somebody else's role, or that we've actually had this issue, we know how to solve it. So when you're working on the business, you have that foresight to be able to troubleshoot, grow, strategize, and you don't really get that when you're working in the business.
Yeah. And wealth is always created through scale. So for most executives, turning to franchising as the answer to their next career transition, or the investor looking for diversification into a business cash flowing asset, you have other things going on, and it's not about you coming in again on the ground floor. It's about you putting some time and energy into managing systems efficiently, and then hiring people to help you scale and build into multiple locations, because that's how the wealth is going to be created. So I want to go back, like still unpacking sort of like that big introduction, because it was so amazing. So let's go back to, were there any big changes other than owners going from owner operator to executive mindset when Exponential purchased Pure Barre? What are some of the other benefits that you've seen as a franchisee being under the Expo umbrella? Like, let's shine the spotlight a little bit on Expo, because, they're near and dear to my heart. I said in the beginning that it's really hard for some of these smaller fitness franchisors to get a lead from Kim Daly, because I know that we have this world-class fitness franchisor with multiple brands. Of all their brands, there's usually something available in every market of the country still. I hope that's always the case. And I just know that they do everything right, from my perspective anyway, on behalf of their franchisees. And we can talk about that pandemic, but that's not the question I really want to address. What I really want to address, Liz, is what I said is, what are the key differences? What were the benefits or advantages that you saw from Pure Barre's original owners once it came under the Exponential umbrella?
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that, because I had several franchisors before, went through several transitions. When I first bought into the brand, I really felt like I would describe it to people that were unfamiliar with franchising. I was like, well, I've bought a technique, right? I don't consider myself capable of creating a technique. I didn't think of this technique, so I've bought the technique. The rest I did. So I did all the marketing, I did all the operations, I did everything, all the sales strategy. I remember I had a lot of spreadsheets and, trying to figure out my sales flow. And I really felt like I operated the business and I bought the technique. So my royalties went to just buying the technique. When Exponential
I'm
came
over here
on,
shaking my head for those people. Sorry to interrupt you, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is not a franchise. So,
right.
okay, keep going with your
Yeah.
story.
But we didn't know any different, right? And so I remember creating my own ads, trying to figure out how to market, and there wasn't really a whole lot of resources. And I was ahead of the game because I had come from business. So like I was, looked on as a good operator because I actually had a business mind, where because of the rules of you had to be able to teach, we had a lot of dancers, young women dancers that were operating it without a business background. So I came with the business mindset, and so I was able to kind of operate fine. But when Exponential came, we finally had resources. We had marketing team, and I was like, oh, I don't have to create my own marketing. It was There was a sales team to help us learn sales for the first time. Part of it was when we
Imagine that. A
I
team to
know,
help you
sales.
acquire your customers. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And because when we first opened, it was like, "Oh, they'll just come. You wanna take you," like, somebody would come take a class and be like, "Oh, great. So thank you so much for coming. Let us know if you're interested." And there was no sales, like, that we understood, right? We didn't understand that. I still don't think that we are like sales. We don't wanna be pushy, but it's like, the majority of our clients are women right now, and the hardest thing is making a commitment. So it's not being pushy and like, selling something that's not wanted. We're selling people a chance to get healthier, a lifestyle change. And so we actually have to sell that a little bit. And so, shocker, we had a sales process brought
Yes.
in. And I think that, yeah, that was our biggest help. And, I worked with Expo since they bought us, and on, how we work our operations and whatnot. I was in a lot of their councils. And so I really felt like they understood, and I was able to kind of help them develop what we need. And the like you said, there's a lot of people that are looking for a different job and they might own one studio, but from a multi-franchise unit, I really needed efficiency and systems that work, and that work across as you grow, and that that are easy with turnover and all those things. And so I think Exponential has really set those systems up so that it's still, you still have to have an entrepreneurial mindset, but it is more turnkey than it used to be. I think that they brought a lot of value to the brand. I know in past franchisors, I think they were focused on selling territories, and that was it. We still are focused on selling territories, sure, but there is a whole team helping us operate in the background. They're providing
Yeah.
training, and really helping more than ever in the past.
Hey, Daily Coach fans, if you're ready to begin your own journey to find the perfect franchise, please email me right now at inquire@kimdaly.tv. My services are totally free for you. That's inquire@kimdaly.tv. Now, back to the show. So, followers out there, if there's ever a reason to use Kim Daly to help you find the right franchisor, like this is the knowledge that I have. I know which franchisors are in the like where Pure Barre was when she first started, and which ones are where she is now today with the back end systems and engines and marketing and support. And they're not just selling territories, they're actually helping people build successful businesses. So, if you're out there and you're inspired by this conversation, I want to be your girl. That's the whole point of this podcast, is to inspire you with great stories that help you understand that there are people out there living the dream as franchisees. And there's someone, AKA Kim Daly, who wants to help you get to that same place. So well said, Liz. So in wrapping this up, let's talk about like what's next for you. So you've accomplished 12 locations in less than 10 years. You're definitely an empire builder. How big do you think you're going to go, or do you think you might diversify into some of the other Expo brands, or do you just sort of like knowing one customer avatar and just continuing in that one kind of horizontal?
Yeah, all great questions. I'm not positive. I think right now I'm focused on getting every studio back to pre-pandemic levels. I've opened three in the pandemic, since the pandemic, and bought one. And so also, right now, my team and I are focused on just rebuilding the ones that we owned prior, building these new ones, and really getting them all to a place that we want them to be. We just see there's a lot more potential for these studios. The pandemic, we lost 60% of our revenue in the pandemic. So really building them up. And as you probably know, in fitness, the same people didn't come back, right? So we're building one client at a time back, and, really getting our feet back solid on the ground, our teams established, getting our technique, to be the best in the brand, in the space. And so that's our primary focus right now. I certainly can't say if another studio came up, as I wasn't planning on buying the one I bought this year, but it, hit my plate and I couldn't resist. So we'll see. I'm not planning on diversifying right now, but I do think there is something down the road for sure as the next step. But right now, I want my team to feel super successful with the portfolio we have and make sure that we have the most efficient portfolio that we can operate.
I mean, again, there's so many things I could just keep saying that you just speak gold out of your mouth. And I mean, I hope this interview resonates with a lot of people who are on the other side. Like, look, guys, yeah, the pandemic was real to her, but she survived. Did you hear what she said? She's purchased 4 new locations since the pandemic. At the time of this recording, it is September of 2023. So just 3 short years, if not 2 short years, right? Since we kind of like 2021, we started coming out of that bubble. So, I mean, God bless you. You're amazing. It did not stop her. It's not an obstacle. Like, it was a temporary setback, but hopefully it's a setup for something even better. And as a whole, Exponential Fitness, of all of the franchisors, not just fitness, of all of the franchisors that I work with, I feel like Exponential Fitness met their franchisees the hardest and the best of any franchisor that I work with. I mean, I sat back in awe. If you've worked with me one-on-one, you know that during 2020, the number one company that I helped people get into was Yoga 6. Like, I was helping people in California say yes to fitness and yoga during a pandemic. So there are stories, if you're brave enough to ask the questions and to really lean in and hear the answers, and how did people do it, and how are they coming back online, and why is she buying more locations? So for the purposes of this conversation, we have accomplished so much, and I'm so grateful to you, Liz. You are a shining star, no doubt, at Exponential, but also I think to the followers of Kim Daly TV. Thank you so much for being my special guest here today.
Thank you so much for having me, and hopefully I've inspired someone.
You've inspired Kim Daly, but I know that you've inspired people. So on that note, if you are excited to begin your journey, whether it's into Pure Barre, Exponential, or just to start thinking about, is there an opportunity out there for me? I want you to follow the email on the screen right now, or reach directly out to me at inquire@kimdaly.tv. That's inquire@kimdaly.tv. Business ownership is not for the faint of heart, but it's also when you're in it and you're partnered with a strong franchisor, you are not solving all of the problems of a business on your own. You don't have to get in the fetal position and worry about recessions and pandemics. Together in a franchise, we come together collectively and collaboratively to continue to grow brands. That's what we do. We mitigate the risks of starting a business, and then we work together to keep a business growing and on the cutting edge, improving and evolving and adapting. So all of that and more was covered in this 15-minute conversation with this amazing and inspiring woman, Liz Roberts. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. And if you're ready to begin your journey, I can't wait to meet you. My name is Kim Daly, and I want to be your daily coach. You can find more content just like this on my YouTube channel at kimdaly.tv. And if you're inspired to take the next step to explore franchises matched to you, please email me right now at inquire@kimdaly.tv. That's inquire@kimdaly.tv.